Hey guys. All right. Oh man, I have a really cool topic for tonight. This is something I've been thinking about for, let's see, it's 2026 minus 2004. So what is that, 22 years? And little did I know how far down the rabbit hole it would take me. So tonight we're going to talk about transhumanism. And before we jump into it, I'm going to play a little clip. I was trying to kind of find something last minute to sort of show the relevance to today. And in my last minute search, I found a clip of Elon Musk. And it doesn't really do it justice, but don't worry, we're going to go all the way into this. But just to kind of start us off, I'm going to share a little quick thing from Elon, just to kind of see, where people's heads are at, even someone like Elon Musk. I don't know when this was from. I just found this random clip of him. And this is just this person's perspective, whatever. But I'm going to play the clip real quick. They're asking him about uploading consciousness into a Optimus robot.
Do you see a path for Optimus to have consciousness downloaded to it?
You mean human consciousness or?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like immediate, but if you said down the road, would you be able to, say, with a neural link, have a snapshot of, or at least an approximate snapshot of somebody's mind, and then upload that approximate snapshot to an Optimus body? I think that at some point that technology becomes possible, and it's probably less than 20 years.
Do you see a path?
Wow. Less than 20 years. Before I keep going, hey Owen, hey Sandro, I see you guys in the chat. The music, I will send you a download link for that one. They already did this with a fly brain and Roblox. Yeah. I think they put a fly brain in Roblox, and immediately it started human trafficking. Let's see. Fly for brain rots. Okay, that's definitely not what we're looking for. They did fly neurons. Come on, neuros. They uploaded a fly brain. Where did it? It was just there. They uploaded a fly's brain.
This fly is being controlled by a digital simulation of its own brain. Scientists literally copied a fruit fly's entire brain down to the last synapse and used it to control a moving body. Researchers first mapped every neuron and connection in a fruit fly's brain, about 125,000 neurons and 50 million synaptic connections, using a super precise electron microscope. Then they built a working model of this brain map and tested whether it could actually predict how a fly behaves. And to their surprise, it matched real biology over 90% of the time. But that brain basically had nowhere to go, until now. A company called Eon Systems connected this simulated brain to a virtual fly body. So for the first time, a digitally copied brain could actually control movement. Basically, the signals come in, the brain processes them, and the body responds just like a real fly would. And to be completely clear, this isn't AI just pretending to be a brain. There's no training and there's no programming of specific movements. It's a biological brain rebuilt from real data making a body move. Their next target is a mouse brain, which is 70 million neurons, or about 560 times larger. And eventually they're gonna move on to the human brain, which is 86 billion neurons, about 1,200 times bigger than the mouse's. But the goal isn't just scientific curiosity. See, if you can run a brain inside a computer, you could build an AI model directly on biology and eventually maybe even copy the human mind entirely. If you want to stay in the loop with the latest in AI and robotics, follow for more.
Yeah. I know there wasn't any video at the very beginning, but you guys saw it once I switched it. I'm assuming so. Yes or no? The one with the fly? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I should have just done that one at the beginning. So that's what they're doing. this whole idea that you can upload consciousness to a robot is really crazy. I have a bunch of stuff I want to go through tonight. And it's not like anyone hasn't thought about this. I mean, there's a fly flying around right now. Right now, it's getting into the season because we have cows where there's lots of flies everywhere because they shit everywhere, and then the flies lay their eggs and they multiply. I know Sandra knows what I'm talking about, and so there's just flies everywhere. Like if you leave the door open for more than a second, like just flies everywhere. So if scientists could figure out how to somehow alter the consciousness of flies and make them just never come inside, that would be really cool. In that case, I would be okay with transhumanism. Okay, so let me see what we got. First of all, just to be clear about what transhumanism is. Actually, let me step back for a second. Why is this relevant? Because at the beginning, I had a little document typed up saying transhumanism is the goal of all religion and spirituality. Now, I know for some people that would be a completely shocking statement, but if you think about it just from this perspective for a moment, take a religion like, well, actually, instead of me just explaining it, let me pull it up. The goal of Christianity. This point right here, right? To be forgiven and united with God. Okay, this concept right here, united with God. So, in the context of Christianity, we were put on earth. We were obviously not perfect, because if we were perfect, we wouldn't have sinned and separated ourselves from God in the first place. But anyways, there was some kind of defect. And then because of that defect, we have to go through some kind of a process to rectify that defect. And there's obviously lots of different branches of Christianity, so I'm just trying to be as generalized as possible. But through that process, you unify with God. You weren't unified with God in the beginning completely. It was like you were kind of close, you were chilling, but you weren't with God completely. You were in a separate kind of existence. And every religion has some sort of concept like this. And what I would suggest is that it is a way for whoever designed this reality to trap people into this reality that we call reality and give us this sort of goal we can go after, which is to go through all these hoops, climb all these ladders and so forth, with the promise that eventually we're going to be something more than we are now, right? And that's a very promising sort of thing for somebody who feels like they're not good enough, feels like they're inferior. And it's ultimately really just a distraction, right? But what I want to show you is if we look through all these different concepts, I've got transhumanism, I have a whole bunch of different concepts I want to cover tonight, but it all kind of comes down to this concept of transhumanism. And this is sort of the final point that humanity is going to be pushed into, that will take all of the religions, all of those promises of salvation and all that, and sort of condense them into one concept that is more physically tangible for people to kind of latch onto. And right now, it's still very much the beginning. Like Sandra said, it's like Fall, right? Which is a book by Neil Stephenson. It's a great book. I suggest to read it. But it describes this process of creating like a virtual reality where you can go into it and you just can sort of basically be God, right? So, I mean, what does it mean to have union with God, right? What is union with God? Other than being God, being with God, being in the presence of God, being in the experience of God, right? So it might seem kind of random if somebody's just randomly coming into this whole idea I'm presenting, but I want to show you what transhumanism is and how things like Christianity and all these religions really are just sort of like the precursors to transhumanism. The ultimate goal being that you could, in some sense, upload yourself into a computer, a robot, and in that transcend your physical body. So you're no longer tied to this physical body, right? And so much of our education system has played into this, actually. If you think about evolution, right? The whole concept of evolution, it's the same point. You started off not really perfect, and you went through a process where you evolved, you got better, you grew in your abilities and so forth. And so transhumanism is sort of the ultimate expression of that process, right? Christians just say, no, you die, but then you're resurrected and you go to heaven with God, and that's where you're God. The transhumanists are going to argue, well, there is no God, so what you do is you transcend your mortal self through computer technology, essentially. So transhumanism. Transhumanism is a philosophical movement that advocates the enhancement of the human condition. I mean, how is that not basically just like religious wording? It advocates the advancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available new and future technologies to enhance longevity, cognition, and well-being. Influenced by seminal works in science fiction, the transhumanist vision of a transformed future humanity has many supporters and detractors. Okay. I like this one. Some critics argue that transhumanism amounts to little more than rebranding of eugenics. Well, if you knew that you actually couldn't upload your consciousness to a computer, which we'll talk about later, but then you would realize it's actually just eugenics. All right. The fly has finally landed on the light. If I could, without breaking that light, I would smash that fly. And so that should be a lesson in itself. When you die and you head towards the light, just realize there's something coming to smite you. Okay, so transhumanist thinkers discuss the potential benefits and dangers of emergent technologies that could overcome fundamental human limitations. Some transhumanists speculate that human beings may eventually be able to transform themselves into beings of such vastly greater abilities as to merit being called post-human. Let's see. That is an interesting word. I'm in the process of reading a book right now called Neptune's Brood by Charles Stross. It's really good. You should check that one out. Maybe later I'll show my book list and give you some ideas of what you could read on this topic. Julian Huxley popularized the term transhuman in a 1957 essay. Might have to check that out later. Let's see what else. Okay, precursors. Oh, check this out. In his Divine Comedy, Dante coined the word transhumanar, meaning to transcend human nature, to pass beyond human nature. You see where I'm going with this, right? Like, Wikipedia's connecting the dots for me. I haven't even read this yet. The interweaving of transhumanist aspirations with the scientific imagination can be seen in the works of some precursors of enlightenment, such as Francis Bacon. One of the early precursors to transhumanist ideas is René Descartes' Discourse on the Method. Interesting. He envisions a new kind of medicine that can grant both physical immortality and stronger minds. Huh. Okay, let's see. So, early transhumanist thinking. Let's see. Let me get some meat and potatoes here. Huxley describes transhumanism in these terms. Up till now, human life has been, as Hobbes described, nasty, brutish, and short. The great majority of human beings, if they have not already died young, have been afflicted with misery. We can justifiably hold the belief that these lands of possibility exist, and that the present limitations and miserable frustrations of our existence could be in large measure surmounted. The human species can, if it wishes, transcend itself, not just sporadically, an individual here in one way, an individual there in one way, but in its entirety as humanity. Now, that's actually a really cool statement. taken out of context, because I don't know what the context actually is, but just taken as it is, that's a really cool statement, actually. I would agree with that. But the problem, I guess what I'll argue within tonight's stream is we're not going to transcend our humanity by putting the responsibility onto technology to make us better. The way that we would transcend our humanity is to actually look within ourselves and say, what am I accepting, allowing within myself as a human being that is not best? If I corrected those things and everyone else did that, we could have exactly what he just described. We could go beyond all our present limitations and our frustrations and surmount all of those frustrations. Let's see. Arthur C. Clarke. Okay, here we go. Artificial intelligence and the technological singularity. The concept of the... Can you zoom in a little bit? Oh, yeah. Sure thing. Is that any better? Let me zoom a little more. Thank you, Owen. Yeah, I can read it because I have this giant monitor I'm looking at. Where was I? I thought that was Mr. Rogers at first. Wouldn't that be funny, though, if you upload your consciousness to, like, the metaverse and you see Mr. Rogers? He's like, hello, neighbor. The concept of the technological singularity, or the ultra-rapid advent of superhuman intelligence, was first proposed by the cryptologist I.J. Good. Okay, here we go. Let an ultra-intelligent machine be defined as a machine that can far surpass all the intellectual activities of any man, however clever. Since the design of machines is one of these intellectual activities, an ultra-intelligent machine could design even better machines. There would then unquestionably be an intelligence explosion, and the intelligence of man would be left far behind. Thus, the first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man need ever make. Okay. So there's a lot of nanotechnology discussion, life extension. Transhumanism is a class of philosophies that seek to guide us towards a post-human condition. Transhumanism shares many elements of humanism, including a respect for reason and science, a commitment to progress, and a valuing of human or transhuman existence in this life. Transhumanism differs from humanism in recognizing and anticipating the radical alterations in the nature and possibility of our lives resulting from various sciences and technologies. But notice what's absent from all of this, right? There's no discussion of, and as human beings, we realize that we should actually treat each other in a way that we would want to be treated. Like the actual principles of Jesus, not all of the eschatological transhuman bullshit. Let's see. I'm just trying to give you, first of all, what? Okay, we got to look at that. But anyways, I'm just trying to give you, like, first of all, a general understanding of what we mean by transhumanism, right? Clearly, it's the idea that we can somehow basically go to the next level of evolution using technology, using science. This is interesting. I wonder what that's about. I have never heard of that. The Mormon Transhumanist Association, what will you create? That's it. Let's see, there's sound. I guess that's it. Oh, here we go. Yep. Transfigurism. Learn more. Okay. That's a weird landing page. Mormon teachings about human individual and social progress toward godliness connect with transhumanist ideas about using technology to improve and enhance the human condition. Mormon transhumanism embraces science, technology, and religion to work toward these goals. As humanity now is, God once was. As God now is, humanity may become. Like, you see, it's like this idea that you're going to become like God, which doesn't make any sense. I thought the whole original sin was that we wanted to be like God. I don't know. Maybe they have a different idea of original sin. Let's see. It is fitting that human beings should strive for similar progress to become more godly and godlike. For Mormons, progress toward a godly existence requires improvement at both the individual micro level and societal macro level. As individuals, we strive toward godhood. Becoming like God, both the process and the outcome, is called theosis. Transhumanism is a growing intellectual movement grounded in ideas about using science and technology in deliberate ethical ways to improve and even transform ourselves in the world. Okay, this is kind of just like copying from Wikipedia. Mormon transhumanism combines these two visions of potential progress and the transformation of the human condition. Our potential to become gods is aligned with our potential to use science and technology in ethical ways to improve ourselves and attain a post-human condition. What? So basically, they're trying to bridge the gap between Mormonism and transhumanism. And they even have their own comic books, or is that just Superman? Okay. That's very interesting. I'm wondering, what is this, like some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like a heretical branch off of Mormonism, or are the Mormons like cool with this? I don't know, man. That's weird. Religious transhumanism. Today, that's like they're doing the work for me here. Today, many self-identified transhumanists are non-religious, but transhumanist origins actually extend back to religious humanism. Thank you for the Mormons to prove my point for me. A long-standing effort at integrating humanistic, ethical, and scientific imperatives with religious forms, metaphysics, and communities. Let's see. His conviction that God was a being of intelligence and order led him to conclude that the laws of nature were discoverable and discernible. Christian transhumanism. I was actually going to get to this anyways. The purpose of creation, as it must appear to us in our highest, approaches to an understanding of it as is God's movement towards self-reproduction. Interesting. Dude, like, this is crazy, because if you were to look at all these tabs I have up there, it's all this stuff. Teilhard de Chardin. Okay, we're going to get to the Turing Church. Oh man, dude, I'm going down some rabbit holes here. Okay, let me rein it in a little bit. I'll come back to that later, I guess. Wow. Look, here was like the second to next tab I had pulled up. This is that Teilhard de Chardin. What was I going to talk about? Julian Huxley. Oh, that was one I pulled up from earlier. Okay, so you saw in there, maybe, I don't know if you could read it or not, but it was referencing Teilhard de Chardin. He was a Catholic priest. Okay, let me scroll up and see if it talks about him. Here we go. Teilhard de Chardin. He's a Jesuit, Catholic priest, scientist, paleontologist, philosopher, mystic, and teacher. He investigated the theory of evolution from a perspective influenced by Henri Bergson and Christian mysticism. And if you've read a lot of science fiction, you've probably come across this guy. I'm thinking Hyperion, or at least some of the books in that series, they talk about him. Philip K. Dick, for sure, talks about him. There's others, I just can't think of any more off the top of my head. But he had this idea of the omega point. The omega point is a theorized future event in which the entirety of the universe spirals toward a final point of unification. He argued that the omega point resembles the Christian logos, namely Christ, who draws all things into himself, who, in the words of the Nicene Creed, is God from God. Light from light, true God from true God, and through him all things were made. Christ describes himself 3 times as the Alpha and the Omega. Oh, I get it. So this guy basically read that and was like, Okay, so there is an omega point because there's an alpha and there's omega, so there's got to be this end point. And if you think about the context I said earlier, okay, thought experiment. Just a thought experiment. Imagine it's the beginning of existence. Okay? Everything and anything that exists already exists, but it's sort of in an undifferentiated form. Okay? So it's like, it's just everything is one thing. And that one thing sort of starts to separate itself. Now, I don't know how it would do this. Again, it's just a thought experiment, but it would separate itself. And in that separation, it's like it comes back together. And then it does it again. And it keeps doing that, like taking itself, separating itself out, causing like sort of a, like a potential energy in a way, and then coming back together. And in that, you would create like a ripple or like some kind of a side effect. And then you do that, then you start doing it more and more. And then you get these other ripples. And if you ever if you drop a rock into a pond, you get these ripples, right? But if you drop 2 rocks, eventually the ripples hit each other and they start to interfere, right? And it makes this kind of sort of complex, imagine dropping a whole bunch of rocks. So imagine like you're a kid and you drop a rock in the pond. That's you, like you're doing it to yourself. I know it's hard to imagine, but you are the pond, and you're dropping yourself into the pond, I guess. And you see this ripple and you're like, that was interesting. So then you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. And over time, those interference patterns become like almost standing waves, which become forms in themselves. And they start to individualize over time. And then in those individualizations, they start to become aware of themselves as that individualization, which doesn't seem like a problem in itself. But over time, one individualization starts to see its individual perspective. It's like it loses sight of the entire picture, and it starts to see that that individualization is all that it is. Like it's just that thing. And then from there, it starts to try to protect that individualized form. And that's the beginning of self-interest. It's like you think that's all you are. You don't realize actually you're everything. So if you could, in your imagination, just play that scenario forward for a long time, you would get these really complex forms, even like beings and societies and civilizations. Not what we see on Earth, but like in another context. Now imagine one of these beings, one of these forms, notices that everybody's kind of lost in that experience, and everyone kind of assumes, because they're just kind of going about their existence, not really thinking about what's the actual effect I'm having on everything else. And even if I am having some effect, I don't really know what it is, and everyone seems to be doing their own thing. I wonder if that's going to keep working out. And if it doesn't work out, is that eventually, am I causing conflict where other individualized forms are trying to protect themselves and I'm trying to protect myself? And then there's sometimes this conflict between us where we're trying to protect our individualized forms, and that can create friction and conflict, what we call war today, right? Or just violence. And in that, you start to develop a sense of fear of, what if me in this individualized form at some point no longer exists? How do I ensure that I continue to exist? Because I don't know anything else. I'm just this. So you can kind of see this delusion that's created over time. And then imagine one of these forms one day says, you know what? I noticed that nobody really actually takes any responsibility for the whole picture. And I've noticed in interacting and communicating with everyone that everyone has this assumption that there's something else greater than all of us that sort of all makes it work out, right? Because everyone's afraid of this, what we would call death, essentially, like non-existence. And we're all just assuming that something works everything out in the end, I guess. So it's like a way of suppressing that fear, because the solution would be, hey, what if I actually communicated with everybody and we all took responsibility for what we were doing and made sure that it was actually not creating any kind of consequences for others that would then create conflict, that would then threaten my ability to continue existing, right? But nobody was willing to do that. Everyone was like, no, we don't need to do that. There's something else that does that for us. It's some higher power, being, force, something, I don't know. So then what happens when one being, I say being, but let's just a form, a being, whatever, you can use them interchangeably. It's like an individualized expression that has a self-awareness of itself. What happens when one of them is like, you know what? Everyone's afraid of not existing. I'm afraid of not existing. But everyone's assuming that something else works this out for us, these conflicts that we keep creating. But I can see that that thing doesn't exist. Like, it's very clear to me that it's just, there is nothing out there that's some greater thing that's going to work out all this stuff for us. And what if that one form says, I'll just be that thing, you know? And maybe they know deep down they're not, but they're like, well, at the very least, if I take advantage of that belief in everybody else, and I kind of manipulate everything so that everybody who believes there already is that thing, if I can over time convince everybody I am that thing, and then they constantly give me all of that responsibility, and then I can direct them accordingly, I can actually create a system where I can ensure that I can exist for pretty much as long as I can imagine, because no matter what, everybody will always be giving me whatever I need to sustain my existence. So that's what I would call God. I mean, it's not what people want God to be, but I'm saying that's as close to God as we would ever get. Just somebody being like, all right, I'll be God. And since I'm God now, you do that, you build this, you build that. And then you build a system that makes sure that you're always okay, basically, because you're just afraid of not existing, but you can create something that would ensure you would always exist. And as part of that, and I know, again, this is just a thought experiment, so don't lose your shit. As part of that, you even realized, a very clever plan. What if I created a place that everybody who sort of isn't still recognizing me as the ultimate God yet, because that's like, just, you get to, like, you have stages in your plan, right? So you've got everybody kind of coordinating and working together, but you need like the final point where everybody's like really actually thinking you're that thing. Okay. Because, you know, if they were like, I mean, I saw you 5 million years ago, I know you're not God. I mean, you're doing a lot of really cool stuff and you're getting very powerful and you're coordinating things. But I mean, look, I knew you 5 million years ago. I know you're not actually God. You need to get rid of all of those people too, right? Because they're gonna basically resist you at some level, right? So you create this place, let's call it like a virtual reality, and you tell people, hey, I've created this virtual reality. And maybe you wouldn't call it that. You would call it, it's like a real place. Like it's a real thing you can go to, right? And I figured out that this place has these magical properties or whatever, where if you go there and you do this process there, you can actually develop this ability to live forever somehow. Okay. So they're like, wait, what do you mean? I mean, I know this sounds totally like insane what I'm saying, but like, that's what transhumanism is. They're like, hey, if you could like live forever if you put your mind in a computer. So it's not like a far-fetched idea that people would come up with. Okay. So, okay, back to this it's another dimension. Okay. This is not on Earth, right? So he's like, okay, go into this system and go through this process and you'll learn how to somehow transcend reality to the point where you'll just be able to live forever, right? And someone says they saw me 5 million years ago. I recognize that name. Yeah, I remember that. Okay, so let's just say the guy's a really good salesperson, okay? I'm not doing it justice. It's like a Steve Jobs level pitch. Imagine like a Steve Jobs presentation, and he's like, the new iPhone, but it's like this place you can go where you can become like immortal somehow. Okay. And he makes it sound really good, right? So, I mean, honestly, when you look at sales pitches these days, like you don't really have to prove everything. You just have to make it sound plausible and like manipulate the fact that the person's like really wanting to live forever. So they're like, hey, that sounds good. You seem really confident about it. I will do that. So he sells everybody on this point. Okay. Now it seems like, how's that going to work? How's this going to work out for him? Right? Here's the trick. So you put this headset on, you lay back. Okay, now I'm kind of like, maybe that's too metaphorical. You like, it's not a headset. Okay, scratch the headset part. He's created these like robotic bodies in another dimension. And then when you sit down, somehow you get like as a being, right? Because remember, you're not like a physical thing. You're kind of like this sort of energetic sort of thing, right? So you like zoom in and now you're in this body. And then you're like, whoa, where am I? This is crazy, right? Like I'm in this other place now, right? But you don't even think that, because the moment you go in there, you don't remember anything. You just wake up and you're like, what is this? And you don't remember where you were. And then you go through this process. Now we're talking about human beings on Earth, okay? You die, you zoom out of their body, and you've gotten all this experience, right? You go out of your body, and then like you're greeted by like some people in like white robes or something, and they're like, hey, come over here. And you're like, oh shit, I'm back. That was nuts, dude. I thought I was really in there for a minute. And they're like, hey, you're doing great, man. Like, how was it? How was your experience? You're like, yeah, it was kind of weird. And, you describe everything. And they're like, and they write all that down. And they file that away. And they're like, okay, are you ready to go back? And you're like, go back? And you're like, yeah, you're not done. I mean, clearly, like, look, you're still like you were before. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay. So you go back in. And you just do this over and over and over and over. And every time you go and you're born, because you're born like a baby, actually. It's not even like an experience where you wake up. You're just like a baby. And then you're like crawling around. And you have no idea what's going on. Okay, now I'm going somewhere with this. Okay, so stick with me. Now we're basically in present day. So this has just happened over and over and over and over and over and over. So every time a human being has lived, they were born, they died, they went back, and they come back. Now, the whole goal of this being was to get all energy, everything always coming to him, because he felt like that's what would sustain his existence forever, right? So he had this belief that he had to have energy to continue surviving. So what he would have to do is, when you're in the experience of being a human being, there would have to be all kinds of information. So like no matter what life you're born into, no matter what, you're taught that there's a God out there, that as long as you believe in him and don't challenge him and you accept him, you're on the right path. You're doing the right thing. You're doing good. You're getting better. So the more you would do that and accept that more and more, you would be given more responsibility to run that system, because it's like you can be trusted, because you're actually putting the whole point in place. And what I'm getting at is, that's how I see every religion on earth, even spirituality, even atheism, because that's just, if you think about it, what's the story of atheism? You started as an amoeba and then became like a fish and then a monkey and then a human being, and you're still really nothing. You're still so fragile and fucked up and everything, but we keep evolving, and now the next one is transhumanism. We'll use computers and we'll go even further. It's still the same story. It's still looking for some future point that you need to get to, and that you just have to accept things as they are, because the atheist accepts, they may not like things about our world, but they accept it wholeheartedly. Like the whole story of evolution, they just accept that. Like, yep, that's reality. Like, I just got to keep evolving. And then finally we'll get there. Maybe not in this life, but whatever. I'm just a vehicle in the process of human evolution. Maybe somebody down the road will be more evolved, and I guess I'm a sacrificial point in that process. So every single point, every frame of reference as a human being in this life is accepting things as they are really not fundamentally questioning any of it. And then through that, giving your power to something that's more powerful than you. So my point is, when you look at all this stuff, religion, all of it, it fits perfectly into that scenario. If there was somebody who was just manipulating everyone to accept them as God, even though they actually aren't. Because if God was real, actually a truly superior, powerful being, he wouldn't need your acceptance at all. It's like he's already complete. Done. It's irrelevant what you do. And from the perspective of an actual God that exists, that is the totality of all of everything and all powerful and totally complete within itself, you're nothing because you're not that. And I think at some level, whether it's Christians or anybody else, any other religious spiritual tradition, deep down actually believes that. They believe that compared to God or that final point, I am nothing. And so when I look at stuff like this omega point, that's what it's saying. It's like the whole point is you really aren't anything, and you're just moving yourself to a point where you can be one with God, unified, which I think is self-contradictory, to be honest. But I think they do a pretty good job of handling that objection, because they're basically like, oh no, like you're just a little tiny version of God trying to perfect itself. But that still doesn't make sense, because wouldn't it already be perfect? So there's a lot of inherent contradiction. But again, what do you have to accept? You're not complete within yourself as who you are. There's something wrong with you. There's somewhere you're trying to get to. That's where all of this stems from. Because like that quote it gave, where was it? That one from Hobbes was great. Where was it? This one here. Up till now, human life has generally been nasty, brutish, and short. So if you were this God thing in this other dimension, wouldn't you basically make sure life on Earth was really fucked up? So that, think about that. If you go into an experience of yourself where everything's totally fucked up, you're like, oh my, like what? Like there has to be something better than this. There has to be something greater. Because how does any of this make sense? Not realizing the whole time, like you're just participating in it because you're not questioning it. You're accepting it. Okay, so omega point, I don't know if there's anything else to say about it, but I just wanted to show you an example of when we talk about transhumanism, it's not just this tech bro thing. It's like its origination, its foundation is in the human belief in God, right? And I think what happens with transhumanism is that we'll project that God as something we have to create, right? Versus it already exists. And I think people who are just like, they stop at Christianity, they're like assuming God and heaven is already a thing there, and we just kind of have to earn our way in. I think I said this on the other stream I did. But the transhumanists, they believe it's a future potential state. It's almost like inevitable, but we have to work towards it and build it. It's just not existing already yet. Now, these guys maybe fall somewhere in between there. Okay, so that brings me into more specifically transhuman stuff. And I think this stuff is very interesting. I've talked about Martin Rothblatt before and other things. And original name Martin Rothblatt. A lawyer, author, entrepreneur. Let me show you. Rothblatt left college, traveled. It was at the NASA tracking station in Seychelles that she, I mean, no offense, but it's actually a dude. Okay, just so you're clear. Had her, but isn't it crazy though how Wikipedia just rewrites everything? Notice, if you just started reading this, you wouldn't know anything about that. You'd have to go all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. Come on, keep going, keep going, keep going. Personal life to finally find out this. That's crazy. Wouldn't that be the first thing? Like just in terms of like, you know, kind of being honest about reality, but it's like buried way down in there. Okay, so I'm just going to say she because I don't have to sit here and correct it every time. She had her epiphany to unite the world via satellite communications. Okay, so this is not some random person I'm talking about. This is, again, I'm just going to say she for the sake of ease, decided to unite the world via satellite communications. Graduated with a thesis on international direct broadcast satellites. Became a convert to Gerard K. O'Neill's High Frontier Plan for Space Colonization. Then went to law school. Published articles on the law of satellites. She was like, we're going to have to figure out all the laws around this so that I can go create it. That's like some forward thinking. Prepared a business plan for Hughes Space and Communications Group. I'm guessing that's like Howard Hughes. Whatever. Okay. Satellite communications, blah, blah, blah. Did all this satellite stuff. And then here was what I wanted to get to. Left Geostar in 1990 to create World Space and Sirius Satellite Radio. You ever bought a car in the last 20 years? And it comes with Sirius XM radio? Martine Rothblatt is the person who created that. Okay, so did all this work with satellites. Seems like it's just all about satellites, right? So, also stuff in like lung biotechnology, which is random. Aviation. And okay. So far it just seems like it's satellites. So, came out as transgender at age 40, 2 years younger than me. Look, I get it. Around the age of 40, you're going to go through, I guess it's just a midlife crisis, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe it's just, a midlife crisis supposed to be older. I don't know. But it's like you'll go through an existential crisis. Let me put it that way. If you have no purpose. Okay, if you have no real purpose, you will go through an existential crisis when you hit that age, around that age. And I think that's a very common theme with a lot of these guys who become transgender. It's like, you just look at your life and you're like, what the fuck? What am I really doing here? And for some reason, the transgenderism thing, it's like something new to get energy out of, like reinventing yourself is what it is, right? And you grew up in a world where, being a man is not necessarily an easy thing. It's not easy to be a woman either. It's not easy to be a person in this world, a human being in this world. But in the experience of being a man, there's all this stuff that you would start judging. And then that would kind of be internalized. And then you'd be like, oh, I can just be a woman. Or I am a woman. Like they would convince themselves somehow. And then all of my problems, all the things I hated about being a man, they just go away. They vanish. So it's like sort of a psyop you do on yourself. Okay, so in 2004, Rothblatt launched the Terrorism movement, a transhumanist school of thought. Now, you might be thinking, how did we go from transgender in 10 years to transhumanism? What is going on here? Focused on promoting joy, diversity, and the prospect of technological immortality. Do you see how it's tying in here? Immortality. This is the thing. What is the Holy Grail? Does anybody know? Maybe in the chat. What is the Holy Grail? I mean, obviously I know what it is. It's the cup that Jesus drank from or something, right? But what is the Holy Grail? Like, why is it such a... Let's see. Trying to find something where it actually describes what's so important about it. A very holy thing. In Parzival, the author Eschenbach, citing the authority of a certain probably fictional Kiot the Provençal, whatever that is, claimed the Grail was a gemstone, the sanctuary of the neutral angels who took neither side during Lucifer's rebellion. It is called the lapis exilis. which in alchemy is the name of the philosopher's stone. What is the philosopher's stone? Aha. It is believed that it could be used to make an elixir of life, which made possible rejuvenation and immortality. Right? Have you seen, yeah, Sandra said Indiana Jones. Chalice with blood of Jesus, according to Indiana Jones, grants eternal life, right? So remember, they try to find the right one. Oh man, I'll be forever traumatized by that scene when I was a kid, where the one person picks it up, but they go for like the really beautiful cup, not like the humble, just normal looking one. I think it's like the woman, right? If I'm not mistaken, one of them, she like grabs it because it's like the beautiful, covered in gems, and they drink it and like they like melt or like turn into like a skeleton or something, right? Okay, so again, what I'm trying to do here in this very, my wife reminded me that it's not called autism anymore. It's called neurodivergence. Okay, so in a very neurodivergent way, try to connect a whole bunch of dots here. Okay, not in a linear way. Some people might just say it's lazy, because I could sit here and put together like a very specific like presentation, but it's so much easier just to kind of go through and randomly talk about it. So you could choose whichever word you want for it. But my point is, you've got, in religion, you get this point towards like immortality. Now, you might say, well, I'm a Christian. I don't believe in the Holy Grail. I drink from it and I get to live forever. Okay, sure. But why do you believe in Jesus then? Well, because when I believe in Jesus, when I die, I'll be resurrected with a new body and I'll live in heaven forever. Like, that's why I told that whole weird, elaborate thought experiment. Because it's actually just self-interest. It's really just a person, an individual, a being's fear of not existing as to why you would accept this whole concept of God, religion, spirituality, evolution, whatever it is, because you're afraid of dying and you don't know what happens. Like, I know when I was 21, 22, I remember laying in my bed, and you know what's ironic? I just realized this. Why this happened, okay? This book right here. Okay, let me give you some context. When I was in college, without giving the whole backstory, which I've done on our podcast many times, I'm just going to try to like fast forward you to, I'm at this private university, and I'm living by myself in an apartment, and I'm going to class. This is probably around the time I met my now wife, maybe right before that, actually. I think it was right before that. And, I had all these things happen in my life, good things, bad things, whatever. I always focus on the bad things, right? And long story short, I noticed one day, because I was thinking about something that happened in my past, and I was thinking about what I was doing right at that moment and how they connected. And I just realized in that moment, I'm like building a story in my mind about my life. Like I have a story that I'm constructing about my life and why I'm here where I'm at right now in that moment, and what led me to this point, what led me to what I'm doing and how I was feeling at the time. And then I just realized, like, oh, I'm like constructing this story that I keep thinking about and I keep adding to. And then I was like, that's weird that I'm doing that. Why am I doing that? And, I don't think a lot of people realize that or consider it anyways, right? Like, you might be aware of it, but it was like in that moment, it was sort of the observer observing itself, if that makes sense, right? I was just reflecting on my own consciousness, my own awareness of myself. And I realized I was doing that. And I was like, that's really weird. What is that? And then I started looking into, the internet was still really cool. It's cool now still, I guess, to a certain degree, but it was more, I don't know how to describe it. Like, my wife can probably describe it better, but it was like you could just kind of go and search for stuff and find people talking about stuff, which makes it sound retarded because you can do that now. But I don't know how to explain it. It's like you could just go on forums. There was forums everywhere. Okay, I know that still exists, but it was more just like people talking. Okay, I don't know how else to describe it. Now everything is so... Well, that's what it is. The algorithms didn't exist. All you had was Google. Okay, and I know that's somewhat of an algorithm, but it was just so much more like Wild West. Okay, so I'm like, what is this? What is it that I'm doing? And I start searching on the internet, and then I find out about consciousness. Right? It's not like I never heard the word before, but then I start reading all of this material on consciousness. Like, and when I first started doing this, the first thing that I kind of came across was a lot of the more academic level type stuff. And all they were doing was really arguing about where does consciousness come from? And they had this ideas about, quantum physics or quantum mechanics and microtubules and trying to figure out where does it come from. And I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, but I don't really care where it comes from that perspective. I wasn't interested in the mechanics. I'm like, what is it? Like, why are we doing it? It's so weird. So through that, it kind of started I just started researching as much as I could, right? And it's ironic because without giving all the details, I probably can't remember anyways, I found this book, right? Let me zoom in a little bit, if I can. Hopefully you can see that. I found this book, Simulacra and Simulation, right, by John Baudrillard. And interestingly enough, this is the book that's, if you've seen The Matrix, that he opens the book to get like a USB or I don't know what it was. I don't remember, but there's like a scene where he has that book. And I didn't know that. Like, I had watched that movie when it came out in the theaters in like 1998 when I was in high school, but I mean, it was a cool movie, but I didn't really get it. So it's interesting. It's just an interesting connection because I started reading this, kind of understood some of it, and I got really into this whole idea of semiotics. I think I saw Century of the Self at that time. I don't know if it was out yet. This was probably around 2005, I think, right? I think I saw some of that stuff. Started learning about 9/11 and just like, it was like my whole world was like, whoa, what the fuck's going on? Like, nothing is real, right? And if you kind of read this book, you'll get what I'm saying. It's like signs and models create a hyper reality that precedes and determines the real. And it was like when I started reading this, I realized, like, I remember I would like be driving from one university to another, like from Houston to Austin, and I'd be looking at all the street signs and the road signs and the advertisements, and I'm like, holy shit, there's signs everywhere. And it just started to like, it's like I couldn't not see it anymore. So what I'm describing to you is what we now call an existential crisis, just so you're clear. So I'm just trying to give you like my frame of mind, right? It wasn't like just one day what I'm going to describe just randomly came out of the blue. It was like all of this, right? I was on track. I had a full scholarship to one of the top engineering schools in the country. I left that school and suddenly I had all this free time and I started studying all this stuff because I started thinking about like myself and like what had led me to that point, and I wasn't feeling happy about my life. I wasn't like upset or angry or anything. I was just like kind of fed up with everything. Like everything is so fake. And so I'm reading this and it's like, yeah, everything is fake. You don't even know what the real world is. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I'm laying in my bed one day. And I don't remember the exact reason why, but I started thinking about what happens when I die. And just like really seriously thinking about it, right? Not just like, oh, I wonder what happens, And when I was like, 9-10 years old, I remember laying in my bed and just having the thought of like people talking about heaven, and I'm like, obviously that's fucking bullshit. Like that's such an obvious fairy tale. Like, but I didn't think anything of it otherwise. I was like, obviously that's not real, but I didn't have an answer. So anyway, so fast forward, it's like 2005, something like that, 2006, and I'm laying in my bed and I'm thinking about what happens when I die. And the only thing I could think of is, I just don't exist. Because I had no fallback. I already knew God didn't make sense. Like, it was a retarded concept. No one ever gave me any reason to accept that God made sense. Let me put it that way. I I couldn't make myself believe in something that doesn't make sense. And no one ever explained anything that made it make sense. And I went to a Catholic private school. Like, we had an entire course about the proving the existence of God and everything. So I already was exposed to all the arguments. My parents went to church, all these different things. Like, I had to go to church. So it wasn't like I was oblivious to it. But at that time, I probably would have just considered myself an atheist, right? Like, I just don't believe in God. Well, anyway, so I'm laying in bed that day, and I'm like, obviously there is no God, so when I die, I just won't exist because I'm not real. Like, I know, like, my consciousness will shut down, and there'll be this final moment where I just don't exist anymore. And then I went on this, like, mental loop where I was like, okay, so what's that moment going to be like? And then what's that going to be like right after that when I no longer exist? And then I'd be like, well, I'm not going to exist anymore, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. And yet it did matter, because I'm like, yeah, okay, my future self that doesn't exist won't care because I won't exist. But like right now, my current self doesn't want to not exist. And so I'm just going in this like loop, like over and over and over. And I just like felt like, I don't know if terrified is the right word, because I wasn't like, it wasn't like a fear, like I was scared. It was just like a, yeah, I guess anxiety is the best word. Existential anxiety. And it's really fascinating, because I'm actually grateful to myself that I let myself go that far. Because I think that most people just don't go that far. Like, we have all these things in our world that give you some sort of ready-made answer that's like, well, but it's like this. And you're like, oh, whew, thank God, like, thank God. Whew, okay, cool. I got out of that one. But like, I just couldn't do that at that time. Right. So, to me, all of the things that people believe in are just sort of a way of lying to themselves to cover up that fear. And now I've obviously evolved in my understanding of what it means to exist, what it means to be alive, what it means to die, what is after death, right? And I'm not going to go into all that right this moment. But it's not something that makes me feel good about it. It's not a thing that, oh, whew, thank God, like that's good. It's not good, right? That's why, for me personally, I'm so serious about let's change the system that we live in, because I really see it as this is the only thing to do. There is nothing else that matters compared to being alive right now and taking responsibility for changing the system, to have it be a place where no matter what body I'm in, if I end up in another body or I don't, it doesn't really matter. It's actually best for everybody. So, that was a very long diatribe / diversion from the point. But getting back to the point, the whole focus of everybody's lives is trying to find some way that they can believe that they're going to live forever. That's my point. So when you look at people like this, transhumanism, it's all just about immortality. Now, what specifically with transhumanism is via mind uploading, okay? So what is mind uploading? A hypothetical process of a whole brain emulation in which a brain scan is used to completely emulate a person's mental state in a digital computer. So that's why I started with the Elon Musk video, right? Now, he kind of equivocated a little bit. He wasn't like, yes, absolutely, you will be able to upload yourself into a robot. He was kind of careful with his words. Like, yeah, you could take a sort of good enough snapshot of consciousness in that moment, like an approximate, was the word he used, an approximate snapshot of consciousness, and upload it to a robot. Yeah, maybe in the next 20 years or so. So he didn't, I don't know, but I didn't really feel like he was being totally forthright. Maybe he was, I don't know. But this is what mind uploading really is about. Look, guys, it's really simple, okay? You got a brain. You got these circles. The circles are connected to the computer. And you see how it says loading, right? And above that, what do you have? A digital brain. I mean, that's science, guys. I don't know how you can argue with it, to be honest. Like, look, It's proven right there. It's possible. Anyways, the computer would then run a simulation of the brain's information processing such that it would respond in essentially the same way as the original brain and have a sentient conscious mind. Okay. What the fuck does that have to do with me living forever? Nothing. All you're saying is that you can emulate a person's mental state and then run a simulation of my brain. And that simulation will pretty much be exactly like I am. How does that mean it's me? In here, okay, there was value in me giving you that whole story about my existential crisis when I was in my 20s. Because I already knew about this, okay? Like, I already knew about this. I had first heard of transhumanism like the year prior to that, okay, when I was in a different school. Long story short, I learned about transhumanism from watching A Waking Life by Richard Linklater. And the movie isn't about transhumanism, but there's a part where they talk about it. So I started going into and researching it. That's how I found out about Ray Kurzweil, who I'll talk about in a bit. So I already kind of, did my own little deep dive into this stuff. So I already knew about this. So when I had my own existential crisis, I was like, yeah, that's definitely not an answer. I mean, again, just like the thing of God, nobody will be able to convince me that this makes sense. You can't see me pointing. That this makes sense. That's how I'm going to live forever. Maybe that computer can live forever. I don't know. Probably not, because, there's a really great book called The Three Body Problem. And it's a series of 3 books. Three Body Problem, The Dark Forest, and Death's End. And it goes like all the way to the end of time, right? In this hypothetical, universe. And there's this one really cool part where they have these archives, and they took all of human recorded history and they put them on this, like the moon or a planet or something like that. And they're these giant like structures, and they have etched into the stone all the information that's ever existed. And it goes through and explains in the book why they used that particular, because you would think, why not computers? But it goes through and explains all the different computer memory formats and how they break down over time. And like, you can't just record something on a VHS and expect that to last 500,000 years. Just sitting in a hermetically sealed room, it will break down over time just because of quantum fluctuations and shit, right? So it's really cool book, like, or that part of the book where he explains like all the different memory methods, ways of recording information, and how they had to find one that would last the longest amount of time. And even then they knew eventually it still wouldn't last forever. So it was kind of like a fruitless exercise anyways, but it was really cool. So I'm just saying, I don't see how you can be this smart. Okay. This person here, how you can be that smart and then think that this actually fucking makes sense. Let's see, what else? Advocate for LGBTQ. Okay, whatever. And here's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. There's this keynote entitled From Transgender to Transhuman to Virtually Human. I have the book. I couldn't find it. It's somewhere. Maybe it's in another part of my house or something. But I was going to show it to you. But either way, I pulled up there's a PDF online of it. So I pulled that up. And towards the end of the book, I'm just going to read this little part here. Okay? Because it's a whole book about well, let me show you. Was it page 137? Okay, let me go back to the beginning. So here's the book. It's called From Transgender to Transhuman. A Manifesto on the Freedom of Form. The newly titled and expanded second edition of The Apartheid of Sex. Where's the dedication? Where did it say? I just saw it. For Bina, that's his wife. And you can look it up. He created a robotic clone of his wife called like Bina 47 or something. It's creepy, man. Let's see. we are not our genitals, the continuum of sex. And then he's the one who did a lot of the legal framework around transgender laws and so forth. I mean, you could do a whole deep dive on that too. It's a whole separate point. But basically, the book is sort of a way of arguing, look at this, beyond gay or straight. If we are all sexually unique beyond male and female categorization, which I guess is proved earlier in the book, then the terms heterosexual, homosexual, and bisexual lose much, if not all, of their meaning. The paradigm of sexual continuism predicts that in the new millennia, society will evolve into a multi-sexual orientation. Persons will love and fall in love with persons based on their emotional feelings. Oh, it's changed so much for the person, not for the person's genitals. I wanted to say something funny about why my wife really loves me. But anyways, I will refrain. Use your imagination. As this occurs, the age-old apartheid of sex will finally be gone. Sexologists have long suspected that innate heterosexual and homosexual orientations are myth. Ancient civilizations like that of the Greek had little problem with the concept that men would make love to both women and boys. Is that where we're going? Okay, the fact that you would use that to support your argument is troublesome, to say the least. Anthropologists have uncovered societies in which women make love to women and men. Since the prime motivation of people to engage in sex is that it feels good, and this good feeling is achievable with either sex or even self. I don't know what he's talking about. Okay. There is no logical reason to assume that people are inherently hetero or homosexual. Yes, if you assume that the prime motivation to engage in sex is that it feels good, then I guess that makes sense. Hetero and homosexuality, in fact, are artifacts of sexual dimorphism. As long as people are either female or male or female, it follows to many that one must either be gay or straight, seek sex with the same or with opposite sex. Now you're thinking, okay, but come on, like, it's not just like our feelings, like it's a biological thing, right? Like we're male or we're female. We have to reproduce to make new human beings, right? So you can't change that. Or can you? Could you perhaps create companies around biotechnology to create artificial lungs and artificial body parts and humanoid robotics and computer technology of uploading your mind so that you're no longer limited by your genitals, I guess, like your disgusting meat body? Like, that's, I'm just, spoiler alert, that's what this whole fucking book is arguing, okay? So let me get back to the point, because I don't want to read this whole damn thing. Okay. Dude, this, I don't know if this is blowing y'all's mind, but like, I already know this stuff and it's blowing my mind. What happened here? I thought I had... What page was it? I thought it was 137. Did I have the wrong page? Oh, look, Kurzweil. Look, Huxley. Remember we were looking at him earlier? There we go. Oops. Oh, man. It would be worth it just to read this, but look, the singularity is near. Have you read that yet? Kurzweil was clear that the new conceptual masters of the universe and hints of evolution as well, see, that's where you bring in the evolution, would literally have at their core the minds and hence the hearts and souls of billions of humans. This is because as humans merge with computers, human consciousness can move from fragile biological substrate. In that book I was telling you about that I was reading, Neptune's Brood, right, by Charles Strauss, it's like thousands of years in the future, and like people, they're not even, they're called post-humans, I think. They like clone themselves instead of having children. They like make clones of themselves. And this one woman, she's like this super wealthy like business magnate, and she has like 1,000 clones of herself, and they all are highly specialized in different fields. and then they go out and they basically like help build her empire. It's really interesting. But the reason I brought it up is because the old style humans, right? They call them fragiles, and there's a Church of the Fragile, which is like this church that tries to preserve like old style human beings, and they eat human flesh. It's fucking weird, dude. But yeah, check that book out. Okay, so this is because as humans merge with computers, human consciousness can move from fragile biological substrate to enduring technological materials. Enduring. Read Three Body Problem. In addition, the costs of computational knowledge are dropping exponentially toward universal affordability. Consequently, everyone who is alive during the epoch of humanity's full-fledged merging with computation will always be alive if they wish. What does that mean? We're not going to force you into this, okay? Like, you could die if you want to, but hey, it's your choice. If they wish, via computer substrate. Homo sapiens, what the hell? Homo sapiens will soon become persona creatus. Doesn't it sound great? As it rides the journey of near infinite growth in computational knowledge that is the singularity. And obviously, I've done a lot of things outside of this stream, and I know a lot of you are on here. I doubt many people yet are watching these that don't know me otherwise, but we've talked about this, right? The singularity. This means that the grace and beauty of human culture will grow right along with the scientific and technological competence of the hybrid human-computer species. You know, okay, look, you can sit here and be like, wow, cool, weird ideas. What a weird person that has these weird ideas. This isn't just some random person. This is the person that helped put up all the communication satellites. Okay? That is in there with like all these legal groups, like changing the laws to make things more transgender friendly and so forth, right? They're part of the push behind why in the schools they're pushing all the transgender ideology, right? And if you think, well, that's okay, Trump came in and he got rid of all that stuff. Yeah, but he's working for all of the other transhumanists, like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. Which, oh man, I should have pulled that interview up. Okay. Where the guy asks him, the guy interviewing Peter Thiel is asking him about like, but you want humans to survive, right? And Peter Thiel sits there for a bit and he's like, and the guy's like, that's a really long pause. I mean, that should be yes, right? And he's like, well, see, that gets complicated when you look at what we define as, and I was like, holy shit, dude. So he's like, yes, I do want humans to survive. It's just, I can't answer that question straightforward because what I think of humans, when you think of humans surviving, you mean surviving as these fragile meat bodies, these biological substrates. Like, yes, humans will survive, but because we're going to merge with computers. So depends on what you mean by humans surviving. Like, you not merged with a computer? No, that's not surviving. But you merged with a computer into the cloud transhuman thing? Yeah, that's how. And by the way, he's doing a lecture series on the Antichrist, saying that the Antichrist is anyone who opposes the development of artificial intelligence and tries to regulate it. Okay. Hence, a transhuman is a person, an entity with human legal rights who is receptive to transcending biological limitations and is adapting in this direction by developing synthetic noetic pathways. A noetic pathway is similar to a neural pathway, but refers more to thoughts than to neural substrates for the thoughts. Okay, refers more to thoughts than to the neural substrates for the thoughts. Okay, so blah, 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 talking about Ray Kurzweil and so forth. I want to get to autonomous computer intelligence is biology, for it is the flowering of human intellectual software seeds. Biology is computer intelligence, for it is the extrapolation of digital genetic code. Um, the first step in extending the lessons of transgenderism. Okay, so here's the point. The first step in extending the lessons of transgenderism to transhumanism is to recognize the continuity of life across substrates, just like the continuity of gender across body types. Just as each person has a unique sexual identity without regard to their genitals, hormones, or chromosomes, each person has a unique conscious identity without regard to their degree of flesh, machinery, or software. It is no more the genitals that make the gender than it is the substrate that makes the person. We must respect the personhood of any entity that thinks consciously, therefore I am conscious. Just as we must respect the sexual identity of any being that feels this gender, therefore I am this gender. Well, I was going to make a point, but here it is. Can a conscious computer enjoy citizenship? Why not, if incrementally computerized humans do, especially once the humans are so computerized as to be indistinguishable from those who are fully computerized ab initio? And how about when the computers multiply so greatly that they outvote the original humans? This sounds strikingly like the argument Afrikaners made against the repealing the apartheid of race, and the argument that men made against giving women the vote. It is just another kind of bathroom bugaboo. As to which, I think he's talking about the whole thing with transgenders using the wrong bathrooms. As to which reasonable solutions will be found. America naturalizes millions of new citizens every day. The naturalization laws can be revised to provide that a person born from information technology may become a citizen in the same manner as a person who immigrates from another country. Death laws can be amended to provide that a person whose higher brain functions continue to be performed by information technology such that there is a continuity of identity and consciousness to the satisfaction of psychiatrists is not legally dead even if their heart has stopped beating. Grandma won't let me have her... Grandma, I can't get access to Grandma's will because she won't die, damn it, because she uploaded herself to a computer. And she keeps posting memes on Facebook. God damn it, Grandma. Is that the world you want to live in? Where Grandma lives forever on Facebook, posting her Trump memes? All right. So that's insane. Here's a little fun thing. Okay, remember when I was saying to me it's like obviously totally retarded that you can upload your consciousness to a computer and like it's actually you. I have this book which I highly recommend. Oh, here we go. It is called Dialogues. Sorry, I'm probably yelling into the mic. Dialogues by Stanislaw Lem. It's really good. And they are dialogues kind of in the style of like how Plato would write dialogues, right? Or, I mean, lots of people have written dialogues, but I kind of think of Plato's dialogues. And I didn't know what was going to be in the book, but I really like Stanislaw Lem as an author. I've read a bunch of his books, so I got that, and then I couldn't believe it like when I read the first chapter, right? So I'm just going to read through it a little bit. It's so good. Because as I'm reading this, I'm like, yes, exactly. This is my point. Okay, so we got Philinus and Hylas. Greetings, dear friend. What are you pondering about so lonely in this beautiful park? Oh, let me zoom in for Owen. I don't even know if Owen's still here, but I'll assume he is. Okay. Ah, is that you? I'm so glad to see you. Last night I worked hard to develop an idea which promises infinitely much to mankind. Oh, hey, Owen. I Stu's still there. I arrived at the conviction, which actually is certainty, that people will sometime achieve immortality. Philinus says, do I get this right? How is it that you are not unfaithful to materialism, which you have hitherto lectured on, do you? That's a weird construction. Hylas, never. My ideas do not collide with materialism. On the contrary, it necessarily follows from it. Philinus, I am all ears. Do explain, my friend. Hylas, as you know, nothing exists beyond matter. These clouds, these autumn trees, this pale yellow sun, these are all material objects, that is, collections of atoms. The various properties of the objects, however, are due to the difference in their atomic structures. Oh, I know. I realized I read that very weird. We, finally, meaning us, we are material objects. Because those are the same oxygen, carbon, or iron atoms, whether they are in stones, leaves, or in our blood, Those formations differ solely by their construction, by their different positions of their particles, that is, by their structure. Therefore, one can say quite generally that there are only atoms and their structures. Hence, I posed myself the question, what is the reason that I still feel to be the same Hylas which used to play here as a little boy, despite all these years which passed in the meantime? Is this feeling of individual identity, I am asking myself, caused by the identity of the building material of my body, i.e., the atoms of which it is composed? But it cannot be like this. For we know through science that the atoms of our bodies are constantly replaced, owing to the meals and drinks that we take and the air that we breathe. Bone, nerve, and skin cells continuously exchange their atoms so fast that after a couple of weeks, all material particles which made up my organism can be found floating in the waves of a river or in a cloud. Nonetheless, I continue to exist and I feel the continuity of my personality. What is this due to? Surely not my unchanged atomic structure. Just take into consideration that the new atoms of my body are not the same which were there a month ago. They are, however, of the same kind, and that is quite enough. Thus, I posit, the identity of my existence depends on the identity of my structure. Philinus says, agreed. And then? In the future, people will make better and increasingly true copies of the atomic structures of all material products of the creation. Today already they are able to produce artificial diamonds or sapphires, artificial urea, and even artificial synthetic protein. Someday, they will undoubtedly master the art of building first the molecules of the living body, then the body itself from atoms. In this moment, they achieved immortality, because they will be able to bring back to life every deceased through perfect arrangement of atoms, according to the structure which his body showed in his lifetime. This process of resurrection will take place, as I see it, in a machine which is fed with the appropriate scheme, a kind of building plan, i.e., the structural formula of a particular human, according to which the machine makes protein molecules, cells, tendons, nerves from atoms. And then this human leaves the machine bright and cheery and perfectly healthy. Now, what do you think about it? Philinus, I say that one has to discuss the problem from all sides. Hylas says, is there anything else to discuss? We are not able to build such a machine yet, but the progress of science makes us certain that it will be built sometime, and it is not important to us philosophers if this will happen in 1,000 or 1,000,000 years. As I said before, there is nothing in nature beyond atoms and their structures. In particular, there is no immortal soul which, leaving the dead, will waft away to the kingdom come. Consequently, someone mastering the art of rearranging the atoms of bodies long decayed according to their structure will be able, eo ipso, to recall these bodies to life with their original shape and functions. But he who has resurrected the body from a deceased person from atoms will cause his presence in the prime of his life, although that person had been born to his grave centuries ago. Philinus says, you think so? Excellent. Do you mind me asking a few questions in order to investigate the specifics of your machine, which recalls to life from atoms and would give me some answers? I do happily agree, says Hylas. Philinus. Great. Imagine, Hylas, that you have to die today, because you are in power of a tyrant who has taken the irrevocable decision to kill you, and who has all possible means to do so. The time of your execution is 7 o'clock in the morning. At 6, i.e., right now, you go for your last walk before death, tortured by sorrow and fear, and you meet me and tell me about your misfortune. Are you ready to take this starting point for our disputation of this fictitious situation in which you are sentenced to death, whereas I am your friend willing to help you, being at the same time the inventor of the machine which can resurrect from atoms? I am ready. Speak. My poor Hylas, you have to die, oh dear, that is terrible. But you are a materialist, aren't you? That is true. That is very convenient. I have just finished the construction of that machine about which we have talked about so recently. The copies which I make by its means are indistinguishable from the originals. Not only are the mortal remains of the human, which is composed from atoms, by my machine identical to those of the original, he has, furthermore, all mental properties of the latter. To give an example, I just want to mention the memory. As you know it, it is based on certain individual features of the brain structure. My machine delivers a copy of the structure of the brain which is precise to the tiniest detail, hence incorporating also memories of events in the past, and the thoughts, recollections, and wishes involved. In a word, dear Hylas, when you fall victim to violence and die in an hour, then before your mortal remains are cold, I will turn on the machine and build a living, thinking Hylas from the same atoms which make up your body now. I guarantee that. Well, what do you say? Are you happy? Yes, sure, of course. You just have to investigate my atomic structure and then enter it into the machine. Philinus. Naturally. But, my friend, may I still increase your certainty to survive death? You know me. Believe in my words, my affirmations, but human deeds are frail, so certainty is imperative here. Hence, please, let me create that Hylas, which is intended to be your continuation right now. He will await your death, and when you have died, I will celebrate the resurrection together with him. That is you. With you. Okay, now, I don't know if it's obvious, but do you see the trick? What are you talking about, Philinus? You have got that right. To increase your certainty, I will make your copy already now. Hylas says, but that's nonsense. But why? Says Philinus. Hylas, this would be a totally separate, different person. Hylas says, yes, how else could it be? This person can and will be infinitely similar. Oh, sorry, you think so? Hylas says, yes, how else could it be? This person can and will be infinitely similar to me. Everybody will take him for me. He will have the same sensations that I have, the same wishes and propensities, even the work that I started. He'll be able to finish it in my spirit. But this will not be me. This will be a double, a twin, so to speak. But I will die forever. Philinus. And I don't know if it's obvious, but it's like the whole thing is reversed now, right? Now Hylas is trying to talk Philinus out of his own idea. Where do you take this certainty? Hylas. Well, from the fact that if you create him on the spot and he will be among us, I will speak of him as he, like of any other person. And that I will see him who externally looks like myself, and still he will be another person, separate from me, different, like everybody. And the fact that we are as alike as two peas cannot sweeten death for me. Obviously, for those living on, for my friends, my relatives, he will be a perfect illusion of my existence. But I will die and not live. Where this certainty, says Philinus. Hylas says, you cannot have the slightest doubt in this matter, Philinus. You just want to put me to the test. Nevertheless, if I picked up this moist dead leaf from the ground and gave it to this second Hylas, assuming he stood here with us, so it would be him who would inhale its sharp and pleasant scent, but not me. And things would be similar after my death, since due to my decease, nothing would change with him. Nothing new would occur. He will continue to exist in this world, enjoy its beauty. I, on the other hand, will completely cease to exist. Philinus says, so, what should we do then? Tell me what I should do with this machine to ensure your resurrection. Hylas says, that is quite simple. You just have to create my living and thinking copy after my death. Okay. He says, you really think so? He says, yes. Philinus says, again, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a nerd or something, but this is hilarious to me. The copy made after your decease will be identical to you. The one made before your death will not, though it will be a person which is similar to you beyond measure, but still somebody else. But where then is the difference between these two persons? Please explain that to me. Hylas says, first, the one created before my decease would be able to see me like I saw him. He will know that I perished while he was just created. He will... Philinus says, if this is your only problem, this I can change. The copy will be asleep in both cases thanks to a sleeping drought. Sleeping draft? I don't know what the hell he's talking about. And I guess maybe they give him some kind of pill or something, goes to sleep, right? I think that's what he's saying. And will awake only after you're deceased. So they create the copy, but he's asleep, so he's not aware of anything. Such that he will know neither about the unpleasant circumstances of your death, nor about the way he saw first the light of day. Hylas says, no, it's not about that. As I see, I was not cautious enough, Philinus. One has to approach this problem with the sharp instrument of reason. Immediately after my death, when I cease to exist, there will be no method in the world by which one would ascertain that this is not me, but merely my copy. Agreed? That's right. If, however, you had made my copy earlier, then it would be easy to determine that this is not identical to me because the copy would exist along with me in a different location. Consequently, this would be a coexistence which ipso facto excludes continuation. So it's like, obviously, Hylas can't be continuing on as that guy because the guy exists already. Yes, now I see where the mistake is. The copy made after my decease, that's me. The one made before my death, that is a different, separate person. Don't say that you can arbitrarily choose the moment of his creation, such that there will eventually be only a millionth part of a second between my resurrection and the creation of my double. Don't say that, Since although the things seem strange, they must be like that. A special situation has special consequences. Philinus says, well, you are saying that a copy which was assembled prior to your decease will be a totally separate person, associated to you merely by extraordinary resemblance. A copy, on the other hand, which was made after your decease will be your continuation, i.e. you yourself, right? Yes. He says, would you mind telling me what is the difference between these copies? This is like arguing with a Christian. Okay, it's like, can you not just like kind of think a little bit beyond what you're saying? The moment at which they were created. A parallel existence of me and the copy excludes continuation. But its existence in time after me, after my decease, makes it possible. Philinus, the existence of the copy after your decease makes your continuation possible. Excellent. So hear now what kind of death the tyrant has destined for you. You shall empty a cup of lethal poison. The agony will last 1 hour. When should I get the machine going? Hylas says, when I completely stopped living. Philinus says, if I then made your copy, it would be your continuation, i.e. you. If it has been made after my death, it will. Philinus, excellent. If, however, the malicious tyrant ordered his medics to resuscitate you, who has died from the poison, by inserting a quill into your throat and giving you an antidote, then what? The copy which the machine made after your death was, as you yourself said, you? Does this copy suddenly cease to be you now that you've been resuscitated? And does it suddenly become a totally separate person? How could this be possible, resuscitating me, a dead person? Philinus says, that would certainly be easier than building a machine which revives people from atoms. It's like, hold on, like we just said this whole thing about you can literally do anything you want with material, matter, anything. So you can't imagine they could resuscitate you? Are we discussing technical or philosophical details, my dear Hylas? Is it somehow impossible in principle to bring a newly deceased person back to life? Are surgeons not able to resuscitate someone who died in the operating room today already? You don't know about this? Please tell me what's the matter with the copy which already was your continuation, what happens to at the moment when you come back to life due to the action of the antidote. Maybe, however, it will not be you who will awaken your original body, but someone completely different. Hylas says, impossible. It is totally clear that I will come back to life in the body which the tyrant had deprived of life by means of that poison. At that moment, the copy will necessarily cease to be my continuation. Philinus says, you think so? Think about it, Hylas. Can you imagine that actually you are that copy? Well, let us assume that I show you the machine and tell you that actually at this moment you have left its interiors. You obviously feel like Hylas inch by inch because the machine has reproduced you perfectly. Now imagine that the other Hylas, which was under the control of the tyrant, has been poisoned 1 hour ago, and right now the medics have been brought back to life by means of an antidote. Do you feel any change in your personality due to that remote event? No. You see, the copy is a living, ordinary person. That follows from the premises. And there can be no changes in it depending on what happens to the original. If the latter is given a poison or an antidote, the copy is neither affected nor changed. Thus we can say, just as there is no causal relation between you, all the ups and downs of your life, and that Hylas which has been created by the machine, be it for 1 year, for your whole life, or only after your decease, in the same way he is a separate person for you, having nothing in common with you except for an astonishing resemblance. That your existence parallel to that of the copy excludes continuation, agreed. Whether, however, the copy made after your extermination really is you, and whether such a possibility opens up to the chance to come back to life again remains to be proven. Up to now, everything is to be said against such an interpretation of the matter. But wait, strange how you have complicated things. Look here, my body. When it has died and been exterminated, then an analogous structure may come into being in the future. Ah, I've got it. Now I know. To make the copy, one has to wait until my body stops existing, until its structure has disappeared completely. Consequently, Philinus says, consequently, the fact if you will come back to life depends on whether your mortal remains have properly rotted or not, if I got that right. Hence, your resurrection depends on the rate at which your bones decay. What if the tyrant orders to embalm you? Then you'll never live again, am I right? Let's see. No, damn, you're not. I see that we have to leave living creatures out of our consideration. Some disturbing factor or of fear or trouble seems to be slipping into statements about humans. Let us discuss the whole matter using dead objects. I have here a precious cameo carved from ivory. Let's assume that I pulverize it to atoms and make an indistinguishable copy afterwards from these very atoms. What do things look like then? I see it like this. If we have agreed that the copy shall be the continuation of the original, then it will be like that. If we decide otherwise, then it will not be the continuation. The decision depends exclusively on our agreement, for if we investigated the earlier and the later cameo, we would be unable to find any difference since both are the same ex deficione. Violinist says, finally, you shed some light on the problem. Your last conclusion applied to humans goes like this. When you have died by 7 o'clock and I have reconstructed you from atoms, you will, depending on what agreement we have made, continue or not continue to live. Doesn't this seem totally absurd to you? Too? If, however, you had died in the operating room under the knife of the surgeon, but medicine will bring you back to life, would you still say that you are living or not living, depending on the agreements we made? Hylas says, the difficulty as I see it is that with respect to anything objectively existing around me, an arbitrarily made agreement or convention decides about the problem of continuation. If, however, I subject myself to an analogous experiment, the mere completion of a convention leads to nothing but nonsense. I do not understand why this happens. For humans are material objects as well as a rock, a flax fiber, or a piece of metal. So he's like, why is it that it makes sense that if I copy the ivory cameo, it's the same? But with humans, which are also material objects, why does it seem like it's not the same thing? I mean, shouldn't it be obvious? What do you guys think in the chat? What is the actual difference here? I will show you the source your confusion springs from. When we embark upon creating the continuation, i.e., if one and the same object continues to exist, now the way it did in the past. Hence, when we define the state of the matter, we choose implicitly, sometimes explicite, the methods which serve to determine this state. My consciousness, however, is directly given to me, and the method which has to determine at this moment whether I am conscious does not depend on me absolutely. Other people can treat me as an object and make agreements concerning my possible existence after my death and my reconstruction from atoms. I am the only one, however, who is not able to act in this way. This is about a general methodological problem. An arbitrary body reveals to us its various properties depending on which method we apply to investigate it. The human consciousness, however, reveals itself to its owner in the most direct, original, obvious way, without the application of any method, or if you like, through the same method for all conscious normal humans. One can entertain the most serious doubt concerning the structure and formation mechanism of consciousness, but there is no denying its existence in identical form in any given individual. You know what? I think you're asking me the wrong questions. The whole problem is inappropriately posed, since it comes down to an argumentum ad hominem. You asked me about future things that I have to think up, since nobody has experienced them yet. And that's not all. Essential here are only my pre-mortal statements. Because when I have died, and you are questioning the copy made in the machinery after my death, if he is me, so will, of course, answer in the affirmative. Will claim to be Hylas, the same which has had this conversation here with you. So everything I have said about the future, which is supposed to begin after my death and the restoration of my body from atoms, but above all, everything about the question, if I will or will not continue to live, all this, dear Philonous, are only my subjective ideas, expectations, thoughts, anticipations, doubts, and nothing else. Philonous, how am I supposed to understand this? So the machine does not bring the dead back to a new life? Hylas says, this I did not say. I do not know how things stand, but there is no scientific proof here for anything. No decisive experiment can be performed, since when questioned, the copy will claim to be me. And there is and will be no way of finding out if he is merely a double. Hence, if one intends to stick to empirical science, then one has to declare the whole problem an apparent one, now and forever. And my statements or those of other persons can one give evidence for certain peculiarities of the human mind, but they say nothing about future events. If it still seems that they do, though, then this is a language abuse and nothing else. This, Philonous, is an apparent problem. I am sure about this now. Philonous says, you are right. There is no empirical solution to that problem. Since even if we had that machine here in front of us, if you were ready to do the experiment and woke up again after your execution, it would remain uncertain if it were you who rose from the dead or only a person who's similar looking. a twin, as it were. Here we face the logically exact case of an alternative. Either the copy is the continuation of the original or it is not. Each contingency, if we assume one of them is true, leads to certain conclusions. If these conclusions lead to logical contradictions, we have to discard them, together with the resolution of the alternative by which it was produced. In this way, we will discover the possibility which is free of logical contradiction, and take it for the one which corresponds to reality with certainty. In any case, it is no apparent problem, in my opinion. An apparent problem is a problem which does not exist at all. If the aforementioned problem does not exist, you have no reason to worry about the things that will happen after the 7th hour due to the plans of the cruel tyrant. You are joking, Philonous. The problem, however, is serious and deserves objective consideration. Being sentenced to death, I'm worrying, since my execution is a fact which is supposed to happen and not an apparent problem. The possibility of resurrection, which I have demonstrated and which was accepted as unshakable, on the other hand, contains mysteries which are hitherto not understood, let alone unriddled by anybody. Let's try to investigate the problem of continuation using humans as an example. Suppose there is some human X, and in his lifetime, we use the machine to create a copy called X prime. X and X prime have the same feeling of their identity, and they have the same memory stored. When questioned, one will answer that he has experienced the same things as the other one. In reality, however, only X has experienced what he is talking about, whereas it is only illusions to X prime. Hence, not only the atomic structure, but also the genetic connection of the present structure to the preceding structure is giving evidence about the identity of a human. In this way, we have saved the concept of identity for our investigations by making the genetic element part of that concept. This identity can be called genetic identity, according to Lewin. Philonous says, I listened to your train of thought with great pleasure, dear friend. However, I think it did not contribute to the solution of our question, but on the contrary, it leads us farther away from it. May I ask why? First of all, you try to show in a different manner than before that continuation is impossible under the condition of coexistence. Second, you demand that we acknowledge the concept of genetic identity as imperative for the proof of continuation. But this is just what makes the functioning of the machine possible, for what are the consequences? If the tyrant gives order to his thugs to hold your mouth shut for a certain time, you have to die. Some scholar obsessed with your doctrine of genetic identity will claim after a careful examination of the body that the deceased is genetically identical with Hylas, that he is the continuation of Hylas. It's just that this continuation is not alive anymore. In this way, he will undoubtedly discover a true fact, but not quite the very latest one, namely that a dying person is about to become a deceased, and that this deceased is the same person, just not alive anymore. But this discovery will not provide the slightest help in shedding some light on this matter. You yourself gave up the postulate of genetic identity at the beginning of our talk when you rightly remarked that it is not the conservation of the same atoms, but the preservation of the same structure, which decides if one feels to be a homogeneous personality. Suppose the thugs cut your hands off. The machine, however, creates new, living hands for you, which will naturally grow on your arms. Will you continue to be yourself? Of course. And now the thugs cut off your head, but I can successfully create a copy of your body by means of the machine, and that copy in turn grows on your head. Will it be you who returns to life in this way, or just your double? I myself. And if I can make a complete copy with all the limbs after your death, it will not be you anymore. Wait. A new thought occurs to me. A little while ago, you were talking about the procedure of carrying out observations, i.e., about methods that we choose to establish whether or not there is continuation of an object. This observation has to be continuous, hasn't it? Only such a method is natural and appropriate. Not at all. Every one of us who is retiring to bed after a hard day is sometimes sinking into such a deep sleep that he is actually losing consciousness of his existence. However, when you awake in the morning, you know with certainty that you are the same Hylas that went to bed the evening before despite this break. Yes, indeed, you are right. But listen, isn't it true that we pay too much attention to the expectations of a person who has to die? Maybe the problem disappears all by itself if the person does not know anything about his sudden death. Well, that man goes to bed and has no foreboding. When he is overcome by sleep, we kill him. We put him in a sleeping atomic copy of his bed. When he awakens, couldn't we say then that a continuation has been created? That this is the same person who went to bed the evening before and that this is the whole truth? My dear Hylas, it's been a long time since I heard so many thoughts coming from you, which are so full of logical mistakes. I mean, okay. That sounds like a stupid objection, but like he's really very carefully going through the actual thought process of somebody who believes that they've created a computer that you can upload your consciousness to. Right? And I know it's a lot, but really look at the way that the objections come out, the way Philinus handles the objections. Because this part right here actually is really interesting. Because think about it. In the future, let's say the government offers euthanasia. I mean, right now in Canada, I think they've, over the last few years, since they started the program in Canada, they've euthanized over 100,000 people voluntarily. People who were depressed, suicidal, but not just suicidal, like they're just depressed. They went to the psychiatrist. They diagnosed them as depression. They offered them euthanasia. 23, 27 years old, euthanasia, they die. And then the parents find out later. The families find out later. So imagine in the future, there's a lot of depressed people because nobody can make any fucking money. They can't pay their bills. They can't pay for gas. They can't pay for electricity. They can't even pay for their fucking AI subscriptions or their Spotify or their Netflix. They're just depressed. They're sad. They go to the doctor. But this time, they're like, but now we have Utopia. Utopia.exe. And we'll put you to sleep. It'll be a peaceful sleep. You won't even know it. In fact, you take the pill, you go about your day, and one day you go to sleep and you just die. But the moment you die, we get a signal. We've already scanned your brain, and we turn on the computer, and you'll be alive in the computer. And now they have robots. You'll wake up in a Tesla robot that looks exactly like you want to look, right? Because remember, you read Martine Rothblatt's book, right? You could be anything you want. You want to be a woman? You want to be a man? You want to be a proto-octopoid human with 12 tentacle penises? Like, whatever you want to be, you could be it. We could have the robot for it, and you'll be able to experience. You want to just fly around in the stars? You could do whatever you want. Like, imagine, like, people are so depressed, they're willing to just die. Imagine when they're like, hey, now, okay, maybe in the case where someone's so sad about their life, maybe they would go and do that, right? If they create this shit, you don't think they're going to market it? You don't think they're going to say, like, they're going to have, like, fucking Instagram ads, like, welcome to Utopia. Have you ever considered the afterlife? You know, or they won't even call it the afterlife. They'll call it, like, real life. Have you ever considered real life? Look, all your friends are there. Remember Sally? And, like, the Instagram ad will have, like, actually Sally there, like your best friend from high school. She'll be like, hey, I'm here. It's amazing. You wouldn't believe it. Like, look, I'm a pony. And then she, like, turns into a pony and starts, like, galloping around. Hey, I always wanted to be a pony. Remember how we'd always play ponies? And you're like, damn, that looks pretty cool. I want to be a rocket ship. Right? So, like I'm saying, they would just market it and they're going to convince people. And if you look at, go back in the argument, how would you know it's not? How would you know it's not them? It's going to talk exactly like them. Look at how effectively ChatGPT can simulate being a human being. To the point where you don't know anymore if somebody wrote something or if it was ChatGPT or some other AI. And I mean, this is just the beginning. ChatGPT only came out, 2026, 3 years ago, I guess, something like that, 3-4 years ago, maybe, when it became like public for everybody. And it's gotten a lot better. And yeah, it's still retarded, but so are people. Imagine like how hard would it be for ChatGPT to simulate like the average Walmart shopper, So you lay in the bed, you die, and you wouldn't know any different. You're not going to exist anymore. You're going to wake up somewhere else, trust me. But your friends won't know any different. They'll like this version and be like, man, you're so happy now. So then, man, I heard about that Utopia thing, man. My friend did it, and he seems a lot happier now. gonna be wild. You can read the rest of it. I know it's way longer than I thought it would be, so I don't want to keep reading this whole thing because you guys can you can find it online. You can get the book. He keeps going and every objection, and I think there's a second dialogue where the guy comes back and he's like, "All right, I thought about everything we talked about," and there's like one point where he talks about like, okay, imagine they create an infinite number of copies of you. Are you experiencing yourself as each one of those copies? And he's like, damn, you got me there. Yeah. So let's see what else we got. Maybe I'll talk for a few more minutes. We'll see. Elon Musk is a huge fan of Ian Banks' Culture series. Heaven Before Death. Ooh, that's good, Austin. Heaven Before Death. Yeah, they'll just call it heaven. Why do I call it utopia? They'll just call it heaven. It's in the cloud. Remember? That's in the clouds. Maybe that's what they're building all the data centers for, really. They're going to psyop everybody into just killing themselves. Elon Musk is a huge fan of Ian Banks' Culture series, citing it as a compelling picture of grand semi-utopian galactic future. And I bring this up because I had heard him talk about this on, and I've read a lot of sci-fi. I had never heard of this before. He was talking about it on some, like, I think he was talking to Zuby on a podcast like a few years back. I remember because I was listening to this podcast when I was going to pick up something from the airport. And I was like, ooh, I told Katie about it. I think we have all of the books. I've read like maybe 3 of them. Katie's read a lot more of them. And she just finished like one of the really big ones, or she's really close to finishing, I think. I forget which one it was. I'll remember later. If you're going to read them, Player of Games. No, not Player of Games, sorry. Consider Phlebas is the first one that I read, and it was really good. The other ones are very different, but that was like a really good, like cyberpunk style. If you like Snow Crash, it's not the same themes as Snow Crash, but it's got that same sort of like action-paced sort of. I don't know how to describe it. It's very cyberpunk. But then Player of Games, I read that. That was really good. And then I read another one. I don't remember what it was, though. Maybe it was Surface Detail? I don't think so. I don't remember what was the one I read after that. I think I've read 3. Use of Weapons. That one was interesting, too. I don't know if I finished that one, though. But Player of Games is really good, too. In Player of Games, there's this one part where they have this TV channel. I'm not going to give the whole thing with spoilers and everything, but they have this TV channel, and it's on this other planet. And the guy's flipping through all the channels. And somehow he finds out like there's different levels of channels you can have access to depending on whether you're like higher up in the society. So like at the very elite level, they have access to all the channels. And so like the stuff they have access to is like real time cameras watching people be tortured to death and like all kinds of stuff I don't want to say on the stream. Really nasty stuff. And he's just like, what the fuck? And it's like, this is what these people watch for entertainment. It's crazy. It's a really cool book. Grimes has a song or an album called Player of Games. I think it's a song, actually. She was married to Elon Musk. Just saying. Okay, so here's the series, the Culture series, and this is the article about the culture in the book. It's a fictional interstellar post-scarcity civilization or society. Composed of primarily of sentient beings, artificial intelligence, hyper-intelligent minds. Many of the protagonists are humanoids who have chosen to work for the culture's diplomatic or espionage organs. I don't want to spoil stuff, but this is just the general overview of the culture, so I don't think there's any real spoilers in here. But Hydrogen Sonata, that's the one Katie's reading. The culture is a symbiotic society of artificial intelligences, humanoids and other alien species who all share equal status. That's why I wanted to show you guys this. Because when I was talking about Martin Rothblatt, it could be like, all right, that's some weird fringe shit. I don't know. But Elon Musk is very much involved with Peter Thiel, all these guys, with Trump, all the stuff you're seeing. Like Elon Musk's companies have Pentagon contracts. He's putting his satellites everywhere, by the way. I mean, I have Starlink right now. It's kind of the best thing I could get out here without getting fiber, which they had only just now laid down. But I just want you to see, like, when I saw that interview with him with Zuby, he was like, yeah, it's the best example of like where humanity could go, right? And I was like, really? So that's why I wanted to read it. So we started reading it, and Katie's read a lot more of them than I have, and we're both like, where's the part that's like the good stuff? Like, meaning the positive future that he's describing. It's fucking weird, dude. Like, there's people where it's like they switch genders back and forth. So like, you know, they're a woman, but they want to be a man for a while, but then they want to have a child, so they switch back. They have a child, and then they switch back to being a man and shit. And I'm like, I thought he was all against all the woke bullshit and all that, but it's like, anyways, it's just out there, man. Oh, look at this. A common saying in the culture: money implies poverty. Interesting. Let's see what else. Ray Kurzweil, he's kind of like the guy who popularized the term the singularity, the technological singularity, although it was coined by Werner Vinge, who also has a lot of really cool books. I just finished Rainbow's End a few weeks ago, and he also wrote Fire Upon the Deep, which is a really cool book. But Ray Kurzweil has a bunch of books. How to Create a Mind with Computers, The Age of Spiritual Machines, The Singularity is Near. He thinks it's happening in the next 20 years or so, or less. I just had this up. I'm not going to read all this, but this is a really great short story called Learning to Be Me by Greg Egan. You can look that up or get his short story collections. I recommend all of his books. I haven't read every single one, but every one I have read are really great. Like some of my favorite. Permutation City, Quarantine. Max read one of his and said it was really good, although I haven't read it. I think it was Morphogenesis, maybe. I'll have to read that. But this is a really good short story about something called a jewel, but it's really dual, D-U-A-L, but they just say it jewel, and that's like their nickname for it. And it's basically they put like, it's kind of like, think of like a Neuralink. It's in your brain. It learns everything about you so that at some point you can die, and then it switches on, and then you live forever as this thing that's memorized who you are, and you live on as that. And you should read it because Greg Egan, if you read the story, he ain't buying into that shit. He's like, yeah, no. So it's kind of like the Stanislaw Lem, where you read it and you're like, oh yeah, that actually doesn't make sense. Like he's doing it in a short story format, so you can see the logical contradictions. It's really good. I pulled this up because I have not read this, but I was looking up this Learning to Be Me, and somebody recommended this one, which I have not read. So I'm going to read that later. I just got that for myself. But apparently it's kind of similar in ideas to this one. Let's see. Maybe the last thing I'll talk about tonight. Let me see what these are. What is this? We talked about that. We talked about that. Talked about that. Didn't talk about that. Christian transhumanism. So maybe I'll just tie it all together. Let's see. How do I just want like the about us kind of. Oh, here we go. So this is a new thing called Christian transhumanism, and honestly, man, in my opinion, I think that Peter Thiel is totally into this, but that's my opinion, allegedly. But I found out about this from some videos on YouTube and looked into this, and it just kind of ties it all together. Because really my whole point tonight was to show you just this desire to live forever. It leads us into these really weird fucking dark places. And also, just to make it even more clear, all the people who believe in Jesus, believe in Allah, believe in whatever, it's because they are afraid of death. And my point here is eventually people are going to realize that, okay, when you're presented with an actual physical thing that seemingly can help you live forever versus you have to just believe this thing, maybe, it's like, which one can you actually see? how much easier, like if everybody's starting point is they're afraid of death, so they'll believe in God. And you say, well, Cameron, how dare you talk about God? Okay, why are there 15,000 fucking different versions of God then? Why don't Muslims and Christians and Jews all just believe the same thing then? Like, because they don't know. Like, you don't know which version is the right version. So that's doubt, actually. So when the transhumanists come along and they say, look, God ain't real, but this is real, and you can live forever here, and people haven't thought it through, just like they haven't thought through the concept of God and their religion and all that. Spirituality, too. I didn't even talk about that. The whole New Age spirituality is the idea that you're going to go through a process of ascending through levels of consciousness so you can eventually ascend and go beyond this, human 3D consciousness and live forever as energy. It's the same fucking shit. And last stream, I think it was, we talked about that Heaven's Gate cult. That's literally what they were all about. They thought this comet was going to come and they were going to go through this process and prepare themselves to like go to sleep, drinking some Kool-Aid, wearing their Nike shoes, which I don't understand what that was about, but whatever. And they would wake up on this fucking comet or something, but like in another dimension, and they'd be like at the next level above human, they called it. It's all, and I don't know if I made this point last time. Maybe I did. But it's almost like, oh, no, I did. It was the point about how they were like so critical of the system we live in, which is why you would get to that state, because you're so feeling like this whole world is so fucked and you can't see any way to change it. So you're like, maybe if I drink this Kool-Aid, I can go live forever on a comet. That makes more sense. Like, it's plausible. How easy is it going to be to manipulate people into believing that these computers can upload your mind when you're fucking talking to grandma on one, posting the memes? Okay, so sorry for the neurodivergence. Okay. Our theological mission. So this is Christian transhumanism. In a world where Christians often see science and technology as enemies of faith, we believe that science and technology are part of the mission of Christ and of God. We as a community need to be able to share this understanding of the Christian story. As an association, not a denomination, the CTA seeks to reflect the interaction of Christianity must have with transhumanism in a manner that will be mutually beneficial. It's almost like they are preparing the way. And it might sound silly because you might think, oh, Christians are never going to buy into this. Well, let's think for a second. You had Jesus. We need to do a stream on just all the denominations of Christianity. That would be so interesting. But you had Jesus. He didn't say he was God. But then Paul had a vision, or he didn't see him, he just heard him. He had a audition, I suppose. He heard Jesus tell him he was Jesus, and then he went and told everybody Jesus was God, even though Jesus never said that. And then, okay, people were cool with that for a little bit, and then you had St. Augustine, and these guys come in and bring in all the Platonic philosophy and take it to the next level. You had St. Thomas come in later, bring in Aristotelian logic, go even further with it. God is the ground of all being, blah, blah, blah. You had like the Teilhard de Chardin, who's like this omega point that we're going towards. So he brought in evolution theory. You see what I'm saying? Like they're just taking all the philosophies and shit that come along, and then they're just trying to put that into Christianity, and it's taking it to another direction. Because it's so easy to see through the other stuff. So this will just be like the next branch of Christianity. Especially when the computers are advanced enough that it's plausible. It'll be more real. Like taking the communion, you have to imagine that something's happening. You just feel it. Oh, I feel it. But with this, you'll be able to plug into a computer in a virtual reality and feel how real it is. And you're like, yeah, I want that. Forever. Because the problem with that is you have to get up, you have to feed your body, go back into the computer. They're like, what if you could just stay in the computer forever and be totally unlimited? Okay, so transhumanism is about the image of God. At the Trans Vision conference in London, sociologist Steve Fuller declared that transhumanism is about the image of God. For the Christians, this connection makes sense, since we see our scientific and technological capacity as part of how we reflect God's own creative nature. We understand the image of God through these lenses. The creation mandate. Okay, I'm not going to read all this. But They're literally arguing. The CTA advocates for Christians to express this humility and love of Christ by dedicating their lives and careers to useful technological development and rejecting the empty display of consumerism and other false values of the secular world. The problem is the love of Christ thing is all manipulated because they believe it's going somewhere to some afterlife or some bullshit or some evolution. I'm like, let's actually just live the actual words of Christ, which was love your neighbor as yourself. Let's create a system that's best for everybody. Let's educate everybody effectively. We don't need computers like to we need computers. I'm talking on one right fucking now. But what I mean is we don't need to go become a computer is what I'm saying. We don't need to become computers. We just need to like use them and enhance what we're doing. But fuck, man. Because if it was just like, oh no, they're just saying Christians need to like embrace using computers, I don't think they'd have a whole website just to say that. I really wish they would just say the point though. Super longevity, super embodiment. Human enhancement is coming. Technology to enhance humans will become as common as sunglasses. We will become changed in ways that are hard to foresee with brain-computer interfaces and genetic engineering. Enhance yourself. Immediate actions. Enhance yourself through relationship with Jesus and being filled with the Holy Spirit. Step 1. Sorry. Step 2. Use the Christian superpower of repentance. Man, I don't know if Sandro's still here, but damn, I bet he's laughing. Engage with technology in a positive way that connects you better. Plan your future. What kind of tech would you adopt as it becomes available? What would be good tech? Engage with human enhancing technology. Exoskeletons, brain-computer interfaces, and visual systems are only a small step away from existing tech. Dude, this is insane. The convergence hypothesis. That science and technology are converging on the rediscovery of ancient religious concepts. Common examples of the convergence are simulation hypothesis, the great filter. Man, I had a meme. Let me find it real quick. I put up this picture. Oh, maybe I took a screenshot. Yeah, here it is. I'll just show it to the camera. How do you think the universe was created? Created by God, has been there forever, from the Big Bang, simulated by intelligent beings. I posted that on Facebook, and I just said all of the above. They're literally all true at the same time, simultaneously. But it's kind of cool. Like, it's kind of what I've been getting at is all of this is just coming together, right? In measured terms, these contemporary ideas explore the concepts of creation, creator, apocalypse, and eschatology, God, spirits, demons, heavens, hells, resurrection, and immortality. They reopen questions of incarnation and theodicy, and they make it possible to articulate incredibly nuanced theological perspectives in new terms. There are strong theological reasons to expect such a convergence. Dude, basically what they're saying is all the technology and all the different ideas and simulation, it's leading people to the point of realizing God is real. Because at some point, somebody's going to start arguing when the AI gets to a certain sufficient effectiveness and control over everything, they're going to convince people that it's God. They're going to say that it's God here on earth. That's what they're going to claim. It may not be like a statement that they make one day, but it's where everything is being pushed towards. You can be with God here on earth by merging with God here on earth in a computer. Your consciousness is a product of a physical evolution process, and it was a process initiated by God so that we could be smart enough to create God's body here on earth as a computer network of all around the world. They'll put them in space. It'll be everywhere. And then you can merge with God in the computer If I just said that, you would think I'm insane. But I'm like showing you this is what people think. And it doesn't really sound crazy, does it? Because people believe in this kind of stuff. The rapture. Right? It's an eschatological concept held by some Christians, consisting of an event when all dead Christian believers will be resurrected and joined with the Christians who are still alive. Together will rise in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Well, they're building the cloud right now. I was looking into this because Katie was talking about John Darby when we were driving earlier. He believes in dispensationalism. Oh, he developed that. So he came up with the concept of the rapture and dispensationalism, which basically is what people are using now to justify why Israel has a right to take over the Middle East. That's a whole nother conversation. So, oh, I just realized I'm not sharing the screen. Whatever. I was talking about John Darby, the pre-tribulation rapture. That's what I was talking about, the rapture. One in the bed, one in the mill, one in the field. What the hell is that talking about? Rapture is derived from the Middle French rapture via the medieval Latin raptura, seizure or kidnapping, which derives from raptus carrying off. God's going to come and kidnap everybody. We shall be caught up. We shall be taken away. The act of plundering. That's pretty interesting. People believe this. They believe that one day God's going to suck them up in the great vacuum in the sky, with the great vacuum in the sky, up into the great vacuum bag in the heavens. And wait, is this from Aquinas? According to those who are found alive at the Lord's coming will be marked off from those who have died before, not for the reason that they will never die, but because in the very act by which they are taken up in the clouds to meet Christ into the air, they will die and immediately rise again. I mean, how hard is it going to be to convince Christians? Like, you got to die first, and then you're going to be plugged into this computer, and you're going to live forever with God. So this is like, I'm making a warning what's coming. All right, any questions in the chat? Crazy shit. What else? I think that's about it for tonight. There's probably so many examples I could go through just to tie it all together, but I think that does a pretty good job. Where we're headed in the system that we live in right now, oil prices are going up, energy costs are going up. We've built our entire lives around using oil. That's what's being attacked right now, is oil production. I saw something from Iran saying that they're all out of oil now in their production, or I don't know. But this is like the elite don't want to support 9 billion people in the current system, because the only way to do that would be to for them to lower their standard of living, because they'd have to kind of balance everything out. The system can't actually handle that. And we've trapped ourselves in this whole system where we need oil and produce things out of oil and run gasoline out of oil and everything. And they're using that as a weapon. And they don't care if people just die. As long as there's enough slaves to keep the system going for their benefit, if they have enough and everyone else is expendable, they don't care. And what I'm trying to show here is people are so focused on their fear of death that they'll just look to anything that makes them feel secure in that. And yeah, Owen says they prefer a billion. Exactly, right? And they'll just use robots for everything else, right? So I don't know what the time window is, but I would say we need to get our asses in gear and communicate with people and share with people hey, we got to stand up. And stand up means you got to educate yourself effectively. All of this stuff that I'm reading, it makes sense to me. If you can't read that and just make it make sense, there's a problem. Like, maybe you can, but how many people in this world could read any of that and not fall asleep and put it all together? I don't think I'm some kind of fucking special genius to put it together. It all actually fits together. Christians want to go live somewhere better when they die. The transhumanists want to live somewhere better when they die, but into a computer. So they're building the computers right now. They're taking all the money that exists and they're pouring it into these giant fucking data centers. They will bankrupt the economy doing it. We will all be fucked. And there won't be a fucking solution at that point. There's just going to be chaos. People are going to be upset. So either that thing collapses first, or they create this shit that I'm talking about. And then everybody buys into it because they're like, well, fuck, man. Like, life pretty much sucks here on Earth, so might as well go into the computer. And it looks fucking amazing in that computer. So all of the advancement of AI, video technology, all that shit, that's why people will buy into it, because they're like, I mean, look at all the amazing stuff you can do in there. The closer and closer it gets to looking really good, and like when they have virtual reality where you can just like be in it and it looks real, dude. So fucked. Yeah, Austin says doing a stream on various types of Christianity would be good. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. That would be interesting. Even like going into like Latter-day Saints, Mormonism, all that stuff. I mean, dude, you could spend like 20 hours just talking about like 5 different denominations. And I remember when I was in high school, I went to a prep school. So I went to like a college prep school. It was a private school, and it was one of the best schools in Texas, one of the best schools in the country, actually. And so, we would read like Calvinist literature and like all kinds of stuff. And I know they did that in many high schools too, but like we would have these deep discussions on this stuff. And I had no fucking clue what they were talking about. But like, as I start going through a lot of this stuff, it all kind of starts coming back to me of like, oh, that's what the fuck they were talking about. Like predestination, John Calvin, does God know? Does he predict the future? Well, if he predicts the future and he knows the future, we can't have free will. The Calvinists were like, yeah, you're right. You don't have free will. God already knows who's going to heaven. You're either one of them or you're not. I'm like, it didn't make sense to me at the time, but I'm like, actually, that makes more sense. Anyways, yeah, we can go into some of that stuff. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it at that for tonight, and we'll see you on the next one. Have fun out there in the Matrix. Wake some people up. I was trying to figure out where my screen was so I can hit off the stream. All right, bye, guys. Bye, guys. Bye-bye. Good night. See you next time.